John, I just want to say it's a great photo of you.
We're live on YouTube, Jesse.
Oh,
Thank you, Brent.
I'm glad that one's for the record.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our fourth and final meeting of this work group. Want to thank you all for participating. I want to clarify one thing about the setting behind me. We've got the shade pulled so that hopefully the sun doesn't block me out too much, but I do want to clarify that I do have hair. And it's the sun coming in and the filter that makes it look like I'm really bald. I tried telling the staff in the room that, and they didn't buy it either. See, there's some smirks there, so I know you're not all buying it either. But seriously, tried opening with a joke, fell flat. That's my bad. I do want to take just a minute though and thank everybody for all your participation in this effort. I know that I and the folks here at OCP have learned a lot about the side of Metrc that we didn't know about, which was the side that stakeholders, industry folks are interfacing with on a regular basis. So, you took a lot of time out of your busy schedules to volunteer to be here and participate. And frankly, you all have done a great job of engaging and being helpful and representing your industry and your interests. And I really want to thank you all for that. So today we've got Metrc joining us, and they're going to be speaking about a few remaining issues that we haven't been able to sort of close the loop on or talk about at all. And they've prepared a short presentation. And at the end of that presentation, we are going to have an opportunity for some Q&A, and we'll open that up for that then. So unless folks have any questions or comments, concerns, I think we'll just jump right into the Metrc presentation. And I would just like to take a second to introduce Brent Doherty from Metrc. I'll let Brent tell you what he does at Metrc, mostly because I can't remember because they've shifted things around so much. I know since like my first month here at OCP, I've been meeting with Brent and talking with Brent, but I think he's had a couple of title changes and job responsibility changes. So I'm not even going to venture a guess to say what his title is these days. But Brent, you want to introduce yourself and take it away?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Vern, and thanks to the OCP for letting us get this chance to talk with the industry. Thank you for the industry for your time. We certainly want to hear from you all. We are a software provider, so we want to make sure that the user's experience is being taken into account. But I will share my screen here. Everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Industry work group today. Sorry about that, skipped ahead. I don't know why this is not. That is, 1 second. All right, this should work now. Apologies for the technical difficulties. And it's still skipping this.
I just want to say, everybody, sorry to miss last time. We had a early frost, so sorry for the no call, no show.
All right, so I think I fixed it. Just as Vern mentioned, I was on this call last time, so I don't really know if I need to get into further detail there. But my name is Brent Doherty, key program manager with Metrc. My role is to assist the customers, which are state regulatory agencies, in configuring and ensuring that all of the that the system is running as effectively as it can be, and matches the regulations set in place within each state. Today, we're going to talk through a few items, and we're going to leave some time to answer questions. I feel like it would be helpful if we kind of kept those questions to specific topics while we're going through it, and then there'll be a time where we can open up to some other questions that might be outside of what we're going to discuss. First, we're going to dive into the API, some of the changes that are coming there around API v2, which is a very exciting development that we've been working through for a better part for over a year now. So what that's information about that, as well as dive into a little bit around transfers and what's currently already available within the system for transfer templates and other things to make things a little bit easier on your end and work with the API. And then we'll follow into I have some of your industry feedback that we got tail end of last call. We'll talk through that, how you can submit, your feedback, as well as some of the things that we are working towards on our end to make the user experience better. And then we'll end with questions and feedback. So like I said, we'll start with the API. So currently we have over 160 endpoints. We are planning on rolling out what was called API v2. I know this has been alluded to on a few other calls here, but this would be something that we're planning on rolling out in early 2023. There's going to be 26 new endpoints. There's the list of endpoints here on the right-hand side that are going to be available through v2. So the current API access will remain alongside v2 for indefinite period of time until we decide until we have enough integrators on v2 that we feel comfortable moving away from v1 and moving strictly to v2. But for the time being, this shouldn't impact anyone if your integrator chooses not to use the version 2 of the API. They just would not have access to these additional endpoints. There's not going to be any charges to licensees for API v2. Any cost component will be directly with the integrators. There will be no additional cost for the licensees here for the use of this. So we won't be charging you directly for anything relating to v2. And then the v2 endpoints is really part of our commitment to improving the experience to end users and to integrators. We recognize that integrators are an important part of the ecosystem. And in that sense, they are also very important to the user experience on your side. So that's really where those commitments are coming from. We should have more information. You should see more information coming out here in the next couple of months on this, but this is something I just wanted to highlight here beforehand. I will move on here. So one thing I do want to note, and this has been something discussed, there's not going to be end-to-end transfers available in API v2. The reason for this is as a company, we've decided that we cannot, there is too much risk involved with allowing for the acceptance and transfers through the API. Due to the fact that you are impacting another license when that occurs with different inventories. So that's not something we are looking at currently. Having said that, there are some means in which you can already use functionality for transfers already in the system, already in the first version of the API, which is transfer templates. So you can essentially create what we call staging manifests. You can enter in all the information about the transfer. The only thing that you would not be able to do through it is actually create that transfer. You'd have to log into Metrc and do that or accept those transfers. Those are the two areas you will have to continue to log into Metrc for, but you can set up the driver information, the license you're transferring to, the root information, as well as, you can even load packages in there. So all of that information can be pre-populated through the API, and that's already available through the current version of that. And then the other piece there is if you have a large number of packages that you are loading in there, if you don't do it through the API in the transfer template, you also have the ability to if you just have the list of package numbers, you load that into an Excel and you can upload that as well, and it'll pre-populate all those package information within the transfer when you're creating it. So those are the two things I want to note on the v2 as well as the transfer piece. So again, the end-to-end piece will not be available, but there are already ways in which you can leverage the API currently that should make this process a bit more automated from the integration perspective. So I will pause here because I think I just gave you a lot to digest. If there's any specific comments on this particular area, yeah, I see Eddie.
Hey, Brent. Yeah, a couple quick questions here. You just mentioned that, there's no charge for licensees to use this API. Is there a way that a licensee can use the API without being a approved third-party integrator?
No, so we would, in order to get an API key to use the API, you would need an API key. You would be able to, you would essentially have to get validated as an integrator to use that. So, whether, if you wanted, are you talking about in production and building out your own system?
Well, yeah, well, I'm just wondering, you had said there's charges for integrators, but no charge for licensees. But as I understand, I think what you're telling us is the only way to actually use this is to be an integrator, and therefore there is a charge.
Yeah, so I don't have the specific details around what that payment structure looks like, but there will be a free version of it. The basis of it is really around volume. So if you're just one licensee, there would likely be a free capability. Again, the API v1 would always be free. The v2, there's some additional charges there that I frankly just don't have that information to share currently. We should be having more information come out on that in the next few weeks. So if that's something you're interested in, we can discuss that further.
Thanks so much. Second question is there any, besides those additional endpoints that you had listed there, or is there any difference to V2 besides those additional endpoints?
Yeah, so the API v2, those are the current endpoints. We will continue to add to that. So that's just what the first iteration of that v2 is going to be. We're certainly open to hearing more information about adding additional endpoints. That's not the final state of it for all intents and purposes. It's just the starting point.
Great. And my final question, the integrators that are already approved for V1 that have gone through the sandbox and necessary approvals from certain states to allow for access to V1, when V2 is available, will those integrators who are approved in V1 automatically, if they choose to opt in and pay for V2, will they automatically have access to V2, or will they have to go through a like a renewal approval process from the state and from Metrc?
No, they with their current keys, everything should, as far as I understand, remain the same. There should not be a recertification of those. I think for the validation process, we're really testing the majority of the current endpoints. A lot of these additional endpoints are requests coming directly from integrators, and some from the industry as far as what they would prefer, would like to have. So this is the starting point, but there should not be a recertification for the V2 as far as I'm aware of. There's a couple other components too that are going to be announced in the next few weeks that will involve some additional information there.
Got it. I appreciate all that. And could you elaborate just a little bit more about these? You mentioned security risks with opening up transfers. I know transfers is such a hot topic on so many people's top of their request lists. Can you elaborate a bit more on what exactly are the concerns? I've heard security concerns before, but I've never really understood that.
Yeah, so it's more about so when you're making transfers, whoever you want to use an integrator, they're validated integrator. They're not a licensed integrator. They have an API agreement, but they're really not licensed within the state. Or if they're not a license of the state. But the sticking point is really that once you're transferring to another license, you have the ability to change another person's or another agent or another license's inventory. That's where we feel that there's too much liability to allow for outside integration to do that. There's also, the mechanism of making sure that the person that is accepting that and creating that manifest, that's being recorded within Metrc. We are the reporting platform for the state of Maine, and that there should be, some, need to go into Metrc and make sure that the person putting that in is actually the person that's doing the work there. That there's no, there's no variance or means of, getting out of the fact that that was something that was done on your side. It's a liability thing on our perspective. And that's, again, not, that's something that's decision made on the company level. But that's really about all I can say for you. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't provide all that much more insight. I guess, if you take a system like LeafLogix, which is one of the more commonly, widely used seed to sale systems, if LeafLogix is able to do basically everything in Metrc, move inventory around, adjust inventory, make sales, I guess it kind of keeps going over my head why LeafLogix wouldn't be allowed to set up the transfer to another license. And also, I don't think they could affect other. And I don't know the back end, technical bits well enough.
They can already set up the transfers. That's the point of the transfer templates. They can essentially do everything up until the point where you are creating the transfer, stamping that you put that in there, and then the person accepting it did on their end. So, reality is that you can do pretty much 90 to 95% of what you need to do for the transfers through the API currently.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll rest it for now. Okay. I appreciate all your answers, Brent. Thank you.
Yep. And then I will jump to Justice, and then we'll keep moving on along the presentation. Looks like their head.
Thank you, Brent. Appreciate it. Could you speak to a little bit more to the 26 endpoints and what issues they are intending to resolve? And will we be able to get a copy of this in advance?
Yeah, well, this is going on YouTube, so you will be able to see this after the fact. This is going to be public record. So these, they kind of cover a lot of these different, cover a lot of different areas. I can't really dive into each one individually right now. I just frankly don't have the time. But if there are ones that you want a little bit more information on, feel free to reach out and we can provide that information.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right. I'm going to keep us moving along here to just talking about the automation user experience. I think that was something that was noted here. Right now, the best mechanism of getting feedback is through our support line. That is where everything is documented right now. We do categorize things like requests and feedback as far as the system. We do catalog all of that. That is right now the best mechanism of doing that. I know. So that's what we have currently. I did note there's a few areas that were already flagged in previous sessions. There was, cleaning up views in Metrc, as well as kind of a request to less clicks, more automation. I think from my end that, it would be helpful to know a little bit more detail about what that is. That's kind of where the feedback comes into play. We need to know exactly what you're looking for in order to help assist and make things better. But as far as cleaning up the views in Metrc really quickly before we move on to some of the other in getting your feedback and answering your questions. Discontinuing items, finishing packages, finalizing sales receipts, those will all clean up your views in Metrc. Those are also good touch points for you to just audit your inventory. Doing all those things will clean up your views, right? So if you're not using an item, discontinue it. That'll no longer be something that your employees will see when they're creating packages, so they won't accidentally use the wrong item, as well as clean up when you're looking at your items as a whole, because they will be moved to inactive and won't be in your view. Finishing packages and filing sales sheets will move those to inactive. So that's another way of cleaning up kind of what you're looking at. There's also the columnar sorting. You can hide different columns. And then if you do hide different columns and you're only looking at certain things, if you do click under your user preferences, the save configurations, it will actually, you won't have to hide all those columns every time. You will be able, it will maintain that as you work through them. So the other piece I just want to note is something that is on our roadmap and is something we're looking at, which is the UI refresh. So this is kind of where that feedback comes into play as well. is the UI refresh. It is something on a roadmap for 2023. We're still in the early processes of really updating the system, the way the look and feel of it is, to improve the user experience. Obviously, we're still, like I said, in the early stage of it. So if you have feedback of what you think might be helpful, please get them to support. We can try to leverage some of that and look at it if it makes sense to include that within that initiative that we're working on. Again, I noted the less clicks, increased automation. Obviously, we talked through the increased abilities through the API, also just highlighting some of the things that's already available. That should help with, assisting in some of the things you're dealing with in Metrc. There's also the CSV upload piece as well. I know for large, cultivation, sometimes it's easier to just do, harvest and other things like that through like a CSV upload. That's another mechanism. So there's the API, the CSV, and then the UI directly. Those are the main items there. And I see Eddie has his hand raised again. Or is that still up? Oh, he took it down.
Hey, sorry about that. I think I just never removed it.
Okay, perfect. Okay. All right. That was and then sorry. So I kind of want to just get through that real quickly, get to the stage where we can answer some questions here. I see Elliot, you already had your hand raised. Elliot. You're on mute.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Elliot.
He's yielding his time. Like I said, I know we talked a little bit about, we talked about the API. I think we've kind of covered that a little bit, but if there are any other questions that you wanted to address right now, we're open to having that conversation, and we are going to be making note of anything that kind of comes out of here that and work with the OCP on making sure we're getting responses on some of these items.
This is Vern. I had just a couple of questions for the group, really. How many folks were aware of or utilize the transfer templates and CSV upload stuff right now? I mean, I guess what I'm trying to gauge is that a functionality that's in full use right now? Or is that the kind of thing that we should maybe do a communications push on to get the word out to more users? And I apologize because the makeup of the screen here doesn't really show me people, but maybe Brent, if you can close the
close the presentation.
Yeah, if you close that, I think it'll let more people in, and then even just the reaction option down there, you can put a check mark in or something like that too. So are you guys utilizing the transfer templates? So 1, 2, 3, 4 at least. Yeah, so looks like about four of the participants are utilizing it. For the others on the call, I mean, is that the kind of functionality that you have played with and didn't utilize, or that you just weren't aware existed? I'm just trying to gauge whether or not this is a communications point that OCP can push out with some, with an associated training link or something.
So did I understand that you can only save a template for transfer through an API or upload it through an API?
You can use it through the UI as well. It's available for both.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's another good use case is if you have a transfer that goes out every week to the same place, same vehicle, you can stay that way too. So that there's a lot of flexibility with it. It really does help. You can also save transporters, save vehicles as information in there as well.
Those are the only two I'm aware of. Vehicles and vehicle and transporter. So how do you do the other thing?
Yeah, so if you hit the little arrow next to transfers on the top bar, you'll see the templates there, and that's where you then you can create them. So,
awesome.
all right.
So you could template, say a testing lab name and address stuff, the vehicle, the driver. You know, you could template all that so that you can have multiple templates going at the same time that you save.
You can save as many templates as you want. I mean, if you're doing it, and then again, the point being with the API aspect of it is you can create all of that staging manifest through the API. All you would have to do in Metrc is go select that you're using it, confirm the information is correct, and then create the transfer. And then on the other side, just accepting the transfer. All right, I see Ryan has their hand raised.
Yeah, just wanted to, are we at the open questions segment of
Yes,
this?
we are. We did jump around a little bit there. We are at the open question.
Okay, I was just wondering if there was any information you could share as far as batch tagging for individual or plants and batches moving forward. I know that was something that OCP has been working through with you guys. Is there a timeline as to implementation of that?
Yeah, I can jump in and take that for Brent, just because Brent's not the guy that we've been dealing with on that. So OCP is in the midst of contract negotiations with Metrc in order to facilitate that change. And we are actively working. We had a call as recently as yesterday. So we're working on that diligently. We're trying our best to wrap it up as quickly as we can. And we have been working on it for quite a long time now. I can't give you a definitive time, except to say that it is a priority of ours. And I will say that I'm very pleased with the amount of work that Metrc's put into it as well. But it does represent what seems like a small change, is actually a pretty big change to Metrc's model and their business model. So we have been having a lot of back and forths with them around implementation of it, but it's actively being pursued.
Well,
And
yeah,
I'm hopeful that it won't be much longer.
that was part of my question is, what is that going to look like on our end, and will our API integrators be able to quickly adjust to that change?
Are you sure you weren't listening in on my call yesterday?
No, I wasn't, but it's been on my mind.
That's exactly what yesterday's call with Metrc was asking.
Okay.
Specifically about the API integrators. Will it break, will the changes that we're proposing either break the API, cause limited functionality, cause it to blow up, and how much time is it going to take to get the APIs to a point that they can accept the changes that we're negotiating now. So they're great questions, and they're questions that we are talking to Metrc about now.
All right. Thank you, Vern.
Sure. Anybody else have any questions that they want to throw out at Metrc right now?
So if you don't mind, I'll ask another one about manifesting. So I feel a little bit silly for not knowing this, but when I'm manifesting over, say, like 20 packages, and the way I've been doing it is you have to drop down and select the unit of measure. Is that all something that can come up? It's not a CSV upload, I know that, but I haven't played with the Excel file upload for packages. Does that information all come along?
Yeah, so if you are creating a manifest, you'll see that select file button. That would be you just create a CSV, and it's just a column of all the package tag numbers. If you upload that, it will automatically add all of those in under that. So, and if you have any questions on that, I would reach out to support. They have a specific CSV upload team that can help assist with that. But there's also a CSV upload guide under the support tab of Metrc as well.
Right. I mean, this is kind of just a comment, and I'll figure it out anyway, but it should bring along, I should be able to give it not just the tags, not like a single column, but everything that would be in that manifest.
It'll automatically fill in the rest of the information about the package.
But not gross weight, because that doesn't even exist in Metrc.
Gross weight you would have to enter in individually, yeah. So unfortunately, that would continue to have to be entered, but all the so yeah.
All right.
I see Elliot has his hand raised. I know he was having technical difficulties.
Did it work? Is this?
Oh, I can hear you.
There we go. Yeah, I have a few questions that I just wanted to jump on real quick. One of the ones I saw earlier was about saving your settings in Metrc, and people were telling me, I've worked with actually some people in the group about going up to my profile, making the changes, saving the changes, moving on. That does not work. I mean, it didn't work for me setting it to 500 and moving my pages and then hit the save button and feeling really good about it. And it didn't save anything. It didn't save the page I was on. It didn't save my extensions. It didn't save my edits. So I don't know if I'm doing that wrong or if we collectively didn't understand that, but I was just looking for some clarity on that.
Yeah, it should save the columns that you have selected. So if you're hiding columns and things like that, that should be what's being saved. I'm not sure the filtering and those things would not be saving.
Okay. So I guess then as a point of clarity, that is, as far as like the saving of a profile, that is what we're looking for, is saving of the extension of the 500, is save not just like the columns that I move, but like the full on set across the board. If we're saving that, to save that. If I want to look at the harvest room and not, you know, my cure room, or if I want to keep things, that was what I was going for. And I don't want to speak for the group. We might have had different goals for that, but that is what I was hoping for on the saving of my page there.
Real quick, I just want to address that real quick. I mean, one of the things that we are looking to be implementing here in 2023 is the Tableau piece. I know we touched on that, I think the last time I was talking here. That's going to be really designed to give you a lot more flexibility in what your reporting is going to be. You'll be able to combine different licenses under, you know, and pull information from multiple licenses that you have on your account. You know, you're going to be able to splice a lot of the data a lot more effectively. So that's really where our roadmap is pointing to, as far as, you know, developing reports for you all and giving you the flexibility to do those things.
Awesome. The other one is, I know also we talked about automation, and just one of the ones that would be really awesome is the lab automation. Like if it knows it's a concentrate and it knows what tests are needed for that concentrate, or if it's an edible and it knows what tests, or its size and it knows what quantity, any sort of automation on that front would be wildly helpful. You know, you put 6 or 7 samples in and you can really mess that up. And I know the system knows what we need based on what product it is. And that would be really awesome.
Yep. And on that end, we are working with the OCP to determine what the best route to make things easier for you is. There's a lot of consideration to be made with the testing regulations and how those are set up, that we want to make sure that what we're doing is going to make it as successful as possible. So certainly something we're in ongoing conversation with the OCP on. Awesome.
Very awesome. And then the last one that I wanted to bring up was just, and I think it was Eddie who mentioned it, those 26 new endpoints. I did take a screenshot just so I could try to like zoom in and see it. But if it's possible, maybe Vern, to send that out just so we could send it to our third-party group so that they were ready and knowing what might be coming down the pipeline, you know, just to get it on their map, I think would be really helpful if possible. So I did take a screenshot, and I am going to try to like zoom in and extrapolate that. But if there's an easier way of just like a file, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, and just so you're aware, I mean, we've already gone through beta testing of the V2, so there are a lot of integrators that already have this information. So this is not something that, you know, we're springing on integrators. The integrators are aware this is coming. We had beta testers of V2, so there are some integrators that have already been working in it and understand the endpoints. So, you know, like I said, this is gonna be on YouTube. So you can, obviously you took a screenshot and you can zoom in. I don't have that file. I just have the photo. So I don't have the official file there. So apologies there, but we can work with OCP if that's something that would make sense to send out. But again, I
would love that if possible. That would be really great.
Okay.
Yeah, and besides the video of this being on YouTube, on our website, we're also going to upload Metrc's PowerPoint into the meeting materials. So you'll have the actual PowerPoint, which might make it easier to read that.
Awesome. Thank you. Those were only some of the questions I had. Thank you.
All right. I will pass it on to Jake, and then I'll make sure I'm not hijacking the time for Vern. So I'll make a time check after Jake's question.
Hey, yeah, so definitely wanted to double up on what Elliot said there about the lists and expanding on like the numbers and keeping that saved. But also something that we noticed, and maybe we're missing something here, but when we're creating transfers, if we select a whole group of packages in a specific order, like just listed in a specific order and then create the transfer. It actually like completely changes the order every time. And there's like nothing we can do to seem to set that straight. Is there anything that, because then you're entering the weights and you have to like jump all over a spreadsheet.
No, yeah, that's an issue we're aware of, and I believe we're working through a fix there. So that's something we're certainly aware of, and addressing.
Huge. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
All right. But I don't want to take up all your time, so I'll let you know. You let me when we're gonna wrap up the questions.
Well, I think this is an important opportunity for folks to get metrics here.
Okay.
So I'll yield other time. So I really want folks to have the opportunity to talk with you and get some questions answered. So
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to make sure I'm not stepping any toes out. I'm happy to answer.
I appreciate the time check piece. I'm
Okay.
willing to
All
let
right.
things
We'll
roll.
keep it rolling then. Elliot, I know you said you only had a few questions, so now I'm assuming we're getting the second batch.
Yeah, just one more. I saw OCP sent out like these 7 different buckets that we've been working on and things that we are interested in. And one of the ones that's in there is the sandbox for the training of people. And looking into what OCP has said, that Oregon has something like that is a sandbox for training of new staff, and even not new staff, but like current staff, reevaluating how people are doing things. That would be really awesome. I really think that something like that, a sandbox of sorts, would be very helpful for training new people, replacements of people, promotions for people. I think it's just a wildly useful tool. And I saw it in here as though Oregon already has that sort of sandbox. And if we could get something like that, that would be really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to defer to the OCP on that front. We've had some ongoing conversation there. I know part of it was to survey the licensees there, but Vernon, I don't know if you want to comment on that aspect of it.
Yeah, so that's a great question. We are aware of the Oregon sandbox piece. It's our understanding that it's a Metrc enhancement, so we'd have to negotiate that with Metrc, talk to them about it. And I actually have a note to bring it up later on in the meeting when we're going over the survey results, so that I can find out exactly what folks would be looking for, what kind of functionality, what would be useful for you all, because I don't want to make an assumption that, oh, this is what you mean by a sandbox, and then we build it and it doesn't meet your needs. It's not what you would hope for or what you wanted. So we do want to talk more about that later. And it is encouraging to know that at least some version of it can be done. So yeah. Well, I thought Ryan had his hand up too, but I don't see it anymore on my screen.
Ryan, I think Ryan might have put his hand down. Maybe Elliot had the same question.
Yeah, could be. Any other questions for Metrc? Well, we have Brent on the call with us.
Well,
Okay.
if we don't have any questions, I really do appreciate the time and hearing from the industry on this. Like I said, we're relying on feedback to make this better for you and for everyone within the Metrc ecosystem. So looks like Ryan's got his hand raised, so my filibuster worked.
Yeah, I came up with a new question. This is kind of a last one to end off. I don't know if I don't know how often you work with the integrators personally, but are there any that stick out that you find as like the best in the business, or Metrc prefers to work with them, or there's a lot of names that we use day to day, but yeah, just wondering if you had any input on that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to remain pretty agnostic when it comes to this. Obviously our recommendations will carry a lot of weight. There's certainly some things that we're looking at in the future of having more partnerships with other integrators. I know we're looking at that in the terms of like RFID integrators that we're we're looking to partner with folks that so you can actually leverage the tags that you're already purchasing with the RFID technology. So that's something that's going to be coming sooner. As far as the general integrators, I really can't speak to a preferred one there. Fortunately, we do carry a lot of weight when if we gave you one, that would probably give them a lot of business, and that probably wouldn't be too pleasing to the remaining, the other ones that weren't mentioned. So, but it is something we're looking at a roadmap of having more partnerships with integrators as a whole, and providing more, curated lists of that. Because right now, as I know, you only see just a list. Doesn't really give you a whole lot of input as far as who's good, who's not. So, but I would encourage whenever you're dealing with an integrator, though, to make sure that you're putting through its paces. Make sure you're getting a demo of it. You're getting a chance to try it out. That's really a key component there. But that's really all I can say on that end. But appreciate the feedback. Yeah, it's something I hear all the time.
Awesome. Thank you, Brent.
Mm-hmm. All right. I will go in order here. Ben, I think you had your hand raised next.
Yeah. So I hope this question isn't too nebulous. And I'm mostly curious. I felt an issue once where I got this sense that like the entirety of Metrc is like an iceberg, and I'm a polar bear and other people are seals. So we're seeing like totally different pieces of it. And so what happened, my one time to touch this, and I expect it's happened in different ways, but I was having an inspection and an inspector said, "These are immature plants. Where's the batch tag?" And I was like, "What's a batch tag? Do you mean package tag?" And so that piece of vocabulary that he was using, it could have just been the guy, and that's totally understandable. But also, like, I think about when MRS, Main Revenue Services, is looking at some piece of metric that I've never seen and trying to make sure that I'm paying the right taxes. Like, do you guys have a good way to know, like, if there are miscommunications happening, just because we all look at such different pieces of metric potentially?
Yeah, I mean, I can try to answer that as best I can here. First of all, on the batch tags, as far as I'm aware, there's no requirement to tag the immature plant batches in Metrc.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's first of all. Second of all, I mean, as far as the data goes, we are a reporting tool. So the reality is that what you're entering in, like, that's what we're using as the record. So if there is inconsistencies there, that's generally speaking on the that's probably from the nature of reporting. OCP does a lot of great work in the back end and diving through the data and doing those assessments. So I'm sure that's where the revenue service organization is getting their information, is directly from the OCP. So I know they do a great job of coming through that data. So I know that on my end, just from my experience with them. So that's really, I think that hopefully that answered your question in some capacity.
Yeah, I think so. It's just like I'm in the blind on it. I have nothing to add. Yeah, but thanks.
Absolutely. Justice, I see you are next up.
Touching on the RFID integrators, is that something you're currently offering or plan to offer?
Yeah, so
both.
Yeah, so we're not going to be offering it ourselves. We are going to partner with RFID integrators and we've come into agreements with them. We've done the vetting on our end to ensure that they are, number one, using the RFID technology properly, but also two, that it's actually providing value. So I believe we have 4 or 5 integrators that we've been working with and that we're looking to announce some partnerships there, hopefully relatively soon. So as soon as that's finalized, we should be sending out a blast to everyone and alerting you to some of these options that you have that can help with some of the efficiencies, as far as leveraging those tags, as well as doing, auditing of your own inventory, right? With, those guns that you see the inspectors have, like, there are integrators that offer similar type products as well. So they don't all do the same things. So there might be differentiations there, but at the end of the day, we've vetted them and made sure that they do what they say they do, and they do it in a way that's meaningful. We did not want to push out partnerships with integrators that we didn't feel were going to add value or that they were leveraging the RFID technology properly. The core Metrc is an RFID company, so we take great pride in that, and we want to make sure that that technology is leveraged in a meaningful fashion. So I don't have that I don't have the list for you yet, but as soon as we have that list ready to go and we communicate out, that we'll certainly be hitting at least a Metrc bulletin, if not, a different mechanism there, but we will certainly be getting that out. All right. No more hands raised. Give everyone a minute here if there's any last minute questions.
All right. Well,
Just real quick, just want to thank everyone again for letting me speak here today and giving me some of your feedback. I think it's really helpful for us to hear these things. And, like I said, we'll be continuing to work with the OCP to ensure that things roll out successfully and that at the end of the day, the user experience is continuing to improve. I don't think it's ever going to be perfect, but, we always want to get there to get as close as possible. So thanks.
thank you very much, Brent. We really appreciate your time and Metrc's time and effort in working with the work group here on this. And just, I'll say it again, the PowerPoint will be on the website under the Metrc work group tab. So it'll be there for everybody to circle back to if you need to or want to. I'd like to move on to the next thing on the agenda, which is the work group survey. So we sent out the survey about, I don't know, a week or so ago, maybe less. But we've had great response. I think all but 3 folks had responded back. And I know some of the folks in the office were trying to reach out to them today to get their feedback. But I wanted to kind of go over the goals of today's meeting and the survey piece. So we really want to gain a comprehensive understanding of the issues, right? So we've been here, been listening. But in the interest of clear, strong communications, we want to make sure that we have a comprehensive understanding of the issues. And that's going to be really important for when we write the report out on the work that the group has done. We want to get a better understanding of the most important problems for you all so that we can make sure that we're prioritizing our work moving forward. And I think that's something that I really want to stress is that our work will continue because it's important, and we know that it's like anything else. When you have to use a software every day, if it works great, things are awesome. But if it doesn't work well, then it's a problem. It's a problem every day, and we're sensitive to that, and we want to make sure that you all hear that. And I also want to just say that when we started out this engagement, this working group, OCP didn't have any illusion that we would be able to solve all the issues that were raised. A big piece of it was to identify the issues that we didn't know about and to flush those out and to get Metrc's involvement in that and to start the problem solving efforts around those, recognizing that chances are these issues that we would raise would be complex, difficult, and not easy to solve, because frankly, if they were easy to solve, somebody would have fixed them a long time ago and we wouldn't be talking about them. So we're going to continue our efforts, and I'll talk more at the conclusion around what that looks like, and we'll be asking for feedback from you all on how you think that we can best continue this and work towards it, continuing to address those things. So, and the other goal that we have for this meeting is to make sure that all the participants feel like their time was spent wisely, that they were valued, and that they were heard. So, we just want to make sure that everybody feels that way to the extent that we possibly can. So, having said that, I think we'd like to just kind of talk about what we're seeing on the surveys coming back, and go through like the the 7 buckets that we identified when we went through the meeting notes and, we rewatched the videos, we came up with those 7 buckets. And I want to make sure that what we captured in those 7 buckets is the essence of the issue, and that it is and that we've identified the potential solutions that were discussed. And this is our chance as a group to review these things and make sure that we got it right. Which is hard when you have this many participants in any kind of a working group. But we also said early on that we wanted to afford everybody the opportunity to participate that expressed an interest. So we made the group a little bit larger than we had anticipated. So unless folks have a question beforehand, I'd like to just jump in and go through the 7 buckets one at a time, make sure we capture the problem, and make sure that the solution that the potential solution that we've listed is accurate. Anybody have any questions before we jump into that? Okay, that's great. Now I say jump in. I don't intend to read through these line by line for everybody. These were circulated ahead of time, and I know everybody can read, and I know you've put a lot of time and thought into these, but first one on the list on the buckets is API. The problem pieces that we identified were the integrations lacking in some regards, and things that were lacking. We identified creating manifests, fixing common or frequent errors, and recording important details like retail waste, returns, destruction, things like that are not current features of the API, or they break or fail to properly load. Is that the essence of the issue around APIs, or is there more there that we need to state? Elliot?
I mean, I felt like when I read that, it was pretty good. And then I also thought that when Brent said basically that there was going to be no API fix for transfers. And I mean, I think we could all sit here and say that them as an internal company can make that decision, and we kind of have to live with the outcome. I think that it does kind of summarize the issue, but at the same point, I also think it kind of pigeonholes us into an answer of just kind of deal with it. So although I believe on that heat map, the API was huge, right? It was like one of the biggest things that the participants said was huge. And then we get the response from Metrc, which was like, well, we internally decided nah. And then, we just kind of have to field that. So I think at the same point that it does do a really good job encapsulating the issue. And Metrc has a right to say, it's a security risk and we're not gonna play with it. I think those two ideas though are now at odds with each other, where we've identified a really good idea, and they've identified that they don't really have any interest in playing with it. And now where do we go from there, in essence, I think is the next question. And I don't really have a good solution for that, except for the fact that we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. And we got our concerns out there and we got our concerns heard. We got their response and their feedback on those concerns kind of sent back to us. And almost in that way, I think that's where I'm right now, still even kind of understanding what the next steps are. But I did think it did a good job encapsulating the issue.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're absolutely right that, but I think at this point, one of the good takeaways, just as an example, is that we understand now that the API is not broken, that functionality isn't provided for intentional reasons, whether we agree or disagree with those. We understand now that it's not broken and that it's not just forgotten, that Metrc for business reasons that they have decided to not enable that functionality. I also, but going back to a positive outcome of this, something that I didn't know going into it was that, well, two things. I didn't know that the API functionality didn't exist for transfers intentionally. And I also didn't know that they offered templates. And, the potential to upload CSVs for large transfers. And I think we'll be looking at those options as something to highlight for the main industry folks. Because I think probably not everybody on this call or in this work group was familiar with that functionality either. Anybody else on the API piece? And I think we'll just make a note under the potential solutions identified by the work group that some user education around templating and CSV uploads for large transfers will be something that we will be working on, probably in conjunction with Metrc, just to make sure that we get it right. But we'll be pushing something out through the data team on how to achieve that increased functionality. Next on the bucket list is customer service issues. So, there's a handful of these around, increased customer wait times. That's been the big one, right? I think from what I heard and the experiences that people were relaying, and there seems to be the essence of it that we had for a takeaway is that there's some conflicting information around sort of ownership of this, like who's responsible for poor customer service when it happens. Is it a Metrc thing? Is it an OCP thing? Is there plenty of blame to go around? What's the issue there? I know we got some feedback from folks around the idea that, hey, as users, we all know when you're bringing on another state because things grind to a halt and you don't have enough staff to help us the way you usually do. I heard folks talking about how things used to be great and then they got really bad and now they seem to be getting better. So there's some encouragement there that we're seeing. But for customer service, I mean, do we have the essence of it captured here? And that really is just a decline in customer service that was experienced for several months earlier this year. Elliot?
I'm just jumping in to help give you answers here, Vern. I feel like I'm the kid in class who keeps putting their hand up to answer all the questions, but
well, I appreciate it because you start the conversation rolling, and if you say something somebody doesn't agree with, maybe they'll speak up.
Yeah, for sure. I went through this and felt like it did really encapsulate what we've dealt with, and I think that it also kind of got to the point of where some of the most serious pressure points of the customer service come from, such as the testing side. When you go to the testing team and it goes into purgatory and then it's waiting for OCP to say it's good or it's not. I do think that we got a lot of that encapsulated into this. And I think that Metrc's point of, we're learning the software like you guys are learning the software. As our team learns your state's rules, things get better and things happen. Also understanding that when they onboard a state or when they make a change, such as version 2 of Metrc, I can only imagine that that's probably going to cause some issues, most likely on the back end, just as any new implementation of software. But I think again, this did really encapsulate a lot of what we were talking about in these meetings and what we were hoping to gain from it, from my point of view.
Great. And I will say that I personally was impressed by the statistics that Metrc produced in the first PowerPoint, where they admitted it. They owned the poor customer service and the increased wait times and things like that, and they had the data to show that they've really taken steps to improve that and to get it back to where it was, if not better, in some circumstances. So, I was appreciative of that, and they didn't come in and just try to deny it or make excuses. They owned it, and they were clearly addressing it, and obviously had started to address it before we raised it in this group, because they couldn't have been that far along if they hadn't done that work ahead of time. So, We do identify several potential solutions that the group came up with. Like scheduling back callback times, which would be a real big help for a lot of the industry folks when you're going to be around a computer and available to spend some time with them on the phone. Including creating a dedicated team for onboarding specialists. Also revisiting and expanding the FAQs, then making those available on Metrc dashboard. So all of those things are things that Metrc's heard, but we'll be following up on with them. Are there other solutions around this issue that that folks want to throw out so that we can make sure that we capture it and include it in our report? And it's fine if there's not, and I can only see a very limited number of people on the side of the screen. So if you've got something, I don't know if Zoom will move you to the top if you raise your hand, but if you've got something, just feel free to jump in and blurt it out. That's cool too.
I was re-listening to last week's conversation, or listening to it for the first time, because I missed it. Sorry about that. But it does occur to me that Metrc is probably fielding, tons of phone calls that are going to be pretty basic. And I've thought about how, the stuff I call them with now is super weird, and, it takes them forever to figure it out because it's a truly bizarre thing that you need a human to answer. A possible way to let, put people who are going to call in into different baskets or lines or something would be like, I don't know, like I'm the only admin for my entire facility. So I could be like a higher, higher level, or, what I'm trying to say. If I'm a new user and I'm going to pick up the phone because that's how I prefer getting support, but I'm just learning the ropes, that would swamp up the lines. But if there are certain users associated with licenses that are like gonna bring, I need a human type concerns to the phone line, then possibly it would make everything go faster to give those shorter hold times. As an idea.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Elliot?
Lastly, one of the ones when I was re-listening to some of the beginning ones, somebody was saying about throwing OCP onto any Metrc related questions, and then OCP came in and was like, "Yo, you're bombing us. Stop." Tips and tricks on this stuff, also like on the the OCP website in regards to testing or any sort of Metrc question. Just I think that could also be really useful because, I heard, include OCP. And I was originally like, that was a really good idea. And OCP comes back and they're like, we have so many of these emails now coming in. It's blowing up our inboxes and it's bogging us down. So like a tips and tricks thing might be useful just for you guys to give to us. So we're not, inadvertently bogging you guys down while we're trying to have somebody talk to us.
Sure. Thank you. We'll make sure that those two get added in there. Next up was functionality. And the takeaway, the essence seemed to be that, functionality needs to be improved, particularly around preventing errors from the onset or providing avenues to correct errors throughout business operations. That seemed to be the big takeaway there around functionality. There are, I think what I've heard, or what I understood even prior to this, is that some functionality, like not being able to make edits after a certain period of time, is intentional by Metrc, as is not preventing some errors in case they're not really errors. But they actually reflect what the real life situation was. But it might represent a violation of some type or something like that. So, but that's the essence of this one. Has to do with Metrc functionality needing some improvements. And then the solution column talked about the ability to discontinue or archive some functionality. When Metrc rolls out Tableau, users will need training and other resources, increased visibility of non-proprietary information, and then training and other resources needed to ensure users know how to properly batch track products when implemented. So, we've got some things that are sort of futuristic in there, which is great to have stuff flagged like that for our consideration beforehand. I think one thing that I've come away with in this, which I hadn't really thought of it in this way, is the idea that if we want to address customer service and the user interface, one of the best ways to do that is try to prevent errors from happening, because it's when errors happen is when the calls come into Metrc, and it causes the headache. So if we can cut that off the pass any way we can, then we should do that. And certainly what's been flagged in this solution column, I think, tracks nicely with all of that. And I'm curious to see what the Tableau rollout will look like and what kind of functionality that's going to offer folks. Is there more here that we need to get? Do we need to get more specific about something? Is there something glaring that we're missing?
I think so. One really specific thing is making manifests when you upload the packages, allow that spreadsheet to take with it every field that is required in that manifest, including gross weight and unit of measure. It sounds like that's not currently possible, even though there's more possible than I knew about. I can tell it's not where it really needs to be to keep me from clicking way too much.
Yeah. Okay. Steve, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I did notice that on the package lists, they did add the source harvest tabs and the lab test batches tabs when you click on the little triangle to the left of the screen. So that was a nice upgrade. I can't pinpoint the exact day they did. I think it was sometime last week or so, but that's excellent. So as far as the functionality goes, that was a big improvement there.
Great. Elliot?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to say exactly what Steve just said. Like, we saw that update come out just recently with those 2 new add-ons, seeing its source harvest and seeing its source packages. And I thought that was great. I don't know if that was something that they were planning or something that came out of this group, but definitely thought it was interesting that we had talked about something like that and then saw it get rolled out. So I wanted to give Metrc, props on that. I don't know if it was planned or if it's something that came from this, but it's a very interesting add-on to see that information. So I thought that was great.
I don't know the answer to that, but I think I'm more than happy to take credit for a win. I think we should all give ourselves a collective pat on the back for that one. Because even if it was in the works already, clearly they saw value in it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been doing it. Okay, so next up is the reports bucket. The essence of that is that the canned reports aren't providing value in the current formats. Is that the essence of it, or is there more to that, or are we oversimplifying it by just saying that the canned reports aren't providing value? That seems pretty broad. It probably captures everything around the reports and functionality associated with those. This is one that I don't know, but I wonder how much Metrc and Tableau will impact this, and whether or not this will address a lot of these issues. But that remains to be seen. Some of the solutions that we identified, allowing for active inventory to be reconciled at the end of the day, future integration with Tableau, and additional reports that might be desired, like around production output, returns, grow times, waste yields, things like that. So those are discussions that we'll have and continue to have with Metrc moving forward around the report functionality. I think one of the things that is worth saying while we're talking about reports and functionality is, Metric's primary mission is as a regulator's tool, right, for compliance. And I think it's always great when you have a database that has that much information in it, that it should be able to be utilized by industry as well to generate some of these reports and add that secondary layer of enhancement, if you will. So we intend to continue to support the industry and wanting to see some of that functionality come out of all the work that you do to put the data into the regulatory system that it's requiring. Are we missing anything there, especially related to potential solutions? Because this is something we're going to be following up with Metrc in future months. Okay, we can move on from there. So the next bucket piece has to do with testing. The essence of the issue, that as we summarized it here, was the testing data is not transparent or automated. And this comes into, there's only 2 lines listed here, but it seems like we spent a lot of time talking about testing, and downstream licensees can't always see the entire testing history of a package, and the testing functionality is too manual, and it creates opportunity for human error. So well, let me stop there. Is that the essence of the testing related issues? Because if there's more, we want to make sure we gather it there. Okay, so the general solution that was identified by the group was talking about streamlining the selection process for testing, so that like if is it by the type of product, is it flour, is it concentrate, is it an edible, that kind of thing. And that was the focus of our discussion, was around that, so that reducing the clicks. I don't have to go in and click 8 different things, and I'm not clicking things that don't matter that cause it to get hung up. If I'm in flour and I click solvent by mistake, that's just going to lock up the test results, and that's going to cause a delay. So can we get to a point where solvent isn't an option if the product type is flour, that kind of thing? And that's what we've identified as the potential solution. Are there other potential solutions that we need to list there or consider? Elliot?
I was just going to say, I think if we could get that streamlined process of it's a concentrate and there's this much of it, this is how much of a sample you need to send, and this is, these are the tests that need to be done on it. I think focusing our energy on that one path and achieving that one goal might be more beneficial than, casting a wide net of very specific items for very specific tests on very specific products. Because I think that streamlined testing selection process, I think that's really the right path to go around testing. And that just would really help minimize getting to the testing team. And that's where we were talking about cutting it off at the pass, never ending up in the error bay where you have to be sorted by a human to get to a solution. I think that would cut out a large portion of that. And it's also cutting out the worst segment, which is the testing team, because to get in there, they have to review the information, check the history, see what's going on. And I think, avoiding that in its totality would be very useful, and a good use of time for both us and them, all the way around.
Okay, let me just recap that. So we're talking about two things, if I'm correct here. So one of them is streamlining the selection process, like these are the tests that are required. But the other component that you're suggesting is equally valuable or maybe more valuable is the amount of the product that has to be submitted for the testing in order for that to be valid. Is that the other piece of it?
Exactly. It's, you have, say, 10,000 candies. That's 20 of them need to go to be tested. You need to do these tests on them. Looking at the history of this is the tests that have been done. So for instance, heavy metals doesn't need to be done again. And doing that information for you just based on the history of the product and where it's going, this is what needs to be done for it. At the same time, like, why am I clicking a production batch when I'm taking things and turning it into it? Like, the software should know that needs to be tested. So that streamlining process of picking those data points out, not only streamlining the testing process, but it knowing what needs to be picked and sort of auto-populating that for you. So there's no endless clicking on endless, 5, 6 things on each test sample. That would be wildly helpful.
Okay. And how's the rest of the group feel? Does everybody agree with that? Does that capture the pain points and the enhancement that would be the most helpful? Getting a couple of green checks, a few green checks popping in here, so that's good.
I'd say what Elliot just laid out is like the gold standard. I would be satisfied. I mean, not satisfied, but even if they could get us a little bit closer to where we could save our own testing template, that'd be fine. But I mean, it does make sense that they could just know what something needs to be released to the next license type. And yeah.
Okay. Brian, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, Brent just said, like, we're able to save transfer manifests. Is there a way that we can save testing templates some way? It shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Great suggestion. We'll make sure it gets added into the potential solution column.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's not something that OCP makes, but it's something that we can design in-house, as a testing template so that, myself or somebody makes it and then they can just click, hey, it's flour, it's this strain, or it's this product. And all the check boxes, we already know which lab we're sending it to. All those things can be pre-laid out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything more on the testing piece? That's great. That was really productive one. I appreciate that, everybody. Next one is training. So I feel like training was a big one, a big bucket that we spent a good amount of time on. The essence that we captured, we tried to identify here is that the training is not specific to main system, too generic to be applicable in a lot of ways. It could be enhanced by creating a main sandbox environment or with more tailoring to our main regulatory system and some written guidance or focused on reporting and other functions. So does that capture the essence of the training component for folks? I know that, what I heard was, better training, clearer training, and that'll help prevent us from making mistakes that cause the customer support calls and tie things up and get frustrations really boiling over. So did that capture the essence of the issue, Elliot? Elliot, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. Sorry. I do believe that definitely captures it. And I know, obviously, if you scroll to the right there where they talk about the Oregon model and how we're kind of in talks with Metrc about what Oregon is doing in their sandbox. If I could push for anything, like if I could walk away from anything from this group, of what I was hoping for, a sandbox in Metrc would be so wildly helpful in any regard. And I can't imagine, how big that needs to be from the cultivation side, making a mother plant, receiving in plants, making strains, popping seeds, harvesting batches, moving it into manufacturing, making a distillate, making an edible, going to retail, selling a product. I cannot imagine what that would need to look like, but it would be so valuable for the people who are working in it to have that playground with it, because that is wildly useful in all regards for that.
Great. And I see there's some agreement there. Justice has thrown the green check in the box there. Any others want to comment on that, or we can slide over to the potential solution identified columns? And there's quite a few that are in here, right? So we talked about, new user training by license type. And I think that some of these, absent the sandbox, I think some of these are in process or actually happening with Metrc, around the shorter videos, very specific items, training topics, those kinds of things. And I think that I know that we walked away, or are walking away with the idea that, main specific training is something that we can certainly be working on an OCP level, to provide that stuff. Are there other potential solutions that we should add into this column? Okay, we'll call that one good then. And the last category that we have, the general bucket, is the user experience. That the Metrc interface isn't user friendly for the licensee in Maine specifically, and a barrier to success. There's, that's kind of a broad-based statement. So it covers a lot of the user experience stuff. I think we've talked about a bunch of it for, like the number of clicks you have to go through to get to a certain place, and the ability to customize, your homepage or your pages, those kinds of things. I think we've identified those as, as solution type things or enhancements that would be making the user experience better. I know we heard from Metrc that they do have a planned upgrade to the user interface. But does that capture it appropriately? Elliot?
Again, I think it does. And I think one of the ones that at least I learned today when I was talking, when Brent was on, was, basically we're us saying like, hey, I'm trying to extend it so that when I go to 500, it stays at 500. Or when I'm trying to stay on this homepage, it stays on this page. And they were saying, oh no, that's just taking out columns. If you look at this like an Excel spreadsheet, it's really just removing columns and you can save it that way. For me, I think that was a really good conversation, because it showed, this is a solution that we have for you to solve the problem that we think you're experiencing, and us not being able to adequately even maybe define what the problem is, or have a bad explanation of what the problem is, and they interpret it a different way. So I do think this encapsulates that really well. But I think, considering all of these things with that in mind, to always remember that, we should reevaluate and revisit these things. And, if they offer a solution and we have this, does it really solve what the core of the issue was? And are we articulating what the core of that issue was, well enough for them? So I think that this does a really good job of gathering what we kind of worked on. And I also think, when solutions come back from Metrc, we should reevaluate all of these 7 buckets to make sure that the solutions offered are fixing the problems we had, and that the problems we had were actually what we were really experiencing. And I think that communication chain was important to understand, from them to us and from us to them.
You agree wholeheartedly. Yeah, 100%. So the solutions column on this one, are we missing anything that folks would like to see added in here? I think we've done a pretty good job of capturing everything that was discussed in the previous meeting. So that's great. So, now that we've said that, those are the 7 buckets, if you will, and the essence that we identified. Did we miss anything? Is there anything that we didn't capture in those 7 buckets and those essence statements? Just want to make sure that we've got it all. I feel like we do, because I know I heard Elliot and some other folks talking about going back and looking at other meetings. I know our staff here did the very same thing in order to come up with this. But I don't want to assume that we got it all and that we got it right, and want to give folks the opportunity to raise any other items that they might have. Elliot?
I think I just wanted to say lastly here that, I often do this to myself where I make a to-do list that's far too big and far too long and something that I might never have a real hope of accomplishing. And that what we've laid out here and what we've done in these 7 buckets, I think is a really good, step in the right direction. I think we could sit here and overanalyze for ages and get analysis paralysis of what we need to fix and how we need to go. But these, as deliverables and marching orders for what we're hoping for, what we uncovered, what we'd like to fix, I think is a very good start. So I'm very proud of it.
Great, thank you. Thanks very much. So I think the next thing that I wanted to do was maybe share some of the preliminary survey results with you all. And so, and just to kind of level set, so we're kind of going back now. We're correlating the buckets that we just talked about with the survey results that we've received from you all, and tried to sort of rank things as what you all are saying is the most important issues. And so, clearly functionality and API are taking the day here, with customer service coming in slightly behind that. And certainly testing and the user experience being first choice for many folks. I did have a clarifying question around functionality and the sort of the sandbox thing, because it wasn't really clear from the responses, or it calls for a little bit of interpretation. So when we talk about the sandbox, when you all were filling out the surveys, were you suggesting that the sandbox falls under the category of functionality for you or under the category of testing? I'm sorry, training. And the reason that we ask is because I saw a lot in the narrative responses around sandbox. I know it's been a big topic of discussion. In my head, I had sandbox as like a training tool, but I wonder if folks were also considering it a functionality piece. And I just want to make sure we have the rankings prioritized properly here. And I think I'm looking at my friends here in the room with me that I work with, my coworkers. Are the surveys still open? Can folks still go in? Okay, so the surveys are still open, so you can go in and make changes if you need to. But yeah, so I guess I'm asking a question, Elliot.
For me, I could totally see how it would go with training. I was viewing it more as functionality, because I was viewing it as a core function of what Metrc would do is, this training program that you'll be held to. I looked at training as sort of kind of what they've already done with the videos. I was thinking of functionality as like adding a sandbox, a whole new function to this software that we could go in and play in and exist in. So I might have completely done my survey part wrong. And if, I want to make sure to get that across correctly. So I'm more than happy to go and change that into training. But I want to make sure to get that in the right bucket, because I definitely was viewing it as a functionality of Metric and not a training thing within it. And that might have been a disconnect for me in how I was answering that.
Okay. And Justice, you had your hand up, but I see you, it looks like you're in agreement with what Elliot was saying. So, I think what I would say is that if it's sandbox related, let's call that a training category piece. And if you want to go back in and make that change in your survey, that'd be great. I think that will likely move training and functionality up towards the top along with API. That was one question that we had around that. The survey piece, I have to tell you, I really want to thank everybody that filled out the survey. I know that, we've had tremendous response to it. Nobody likes doing surveys. But I think we really tried to make this as painless as possible, but still gather the, enough information that it could really help guide our work moving forward to really prioritize what we need to make our priorities, really identify those and make sure we're focusing on the right things. So thank you to everybody that did that. And thank you in advance for the few people that hadn't had a chance to do it, who I trust will do it. Ben, you get your hand up?
Yeah, after going similar to which bucket does it go in, after reviewing that PDF of the buckets we put together, I'm looking at user experience and functionality. I think that I saw like tedious clicking as something under user experience, but I was thinking of it as functionality. Should I edit that, or how do you guys group the idea that, like, if every single package is all pounds, why should I have to select pounds and possibly, put the wrong unit? Is that functionality or user experience? I don't know.
I think we'd call that user experience.
Then my chief and only gripe is user experience. I think now that I've learned it already, past the growing pains, it's such hours I haven't spent with my kid just because I'm interacting with these dialogue boxes.
Sure. Yeah. We appreciate that feedback for sure. So I just had a note handed to me. So we're going to resend the survey so folks can redo that question. Great. Yeah, so I don't have any real questions around this. I just wanted to share the survey results piece the way we have it laid out there. I see a couple of hands raised. Ben, is your hand up from last time, or do you have a new thing?
No, yeah, sorry, let me.
Okay. Elliot?
When you send out the survey again, would you send out a deadline to have it back by? We have a few members on our staff who use Metrc, and I tried to get them to answer the survey as well, although they weren't in this group. They definitely use it every day. So if we could just get a deadline when you would like that survey back by, that would be really helpful too, just to make sure we can get maybe even more people responding to it who use it.
Yeah, I mean, we ideally like to have the responses back by close of business Friday, if that's not too quick. I generally feel like if we give folks too much time, it just gets pushed back. Hey, I've got another 2 weeks to do that, and that's my nature anyway. I prioritize the next deadline I have. So yeah, so if you can try to get that done by Friday, close the business, that would be awesome. So, moving on to the next agenda item, the discussion and priorities. So based on the survey results, we're looking at functionality and API, or, API/training, sandbox stuff as the most important topics to kind of solve for. We have a little bit of a roadmap in regards to the Oregon model as far as the sandbox is concerned. We So we can start working off of that. But one thing I wanted to kind of discuss in a little bit more detail with you all is, what exactly we mean by a sandbox. I know Elliot's done a great job of detailing out, being able to go in there and actually do these tasks. And just to sort of level set for everybody, when we talk about a sandbox, what I think about, what our staff here at OCP thinks about, has to do with an environment that has some dummy data in it, pre-populated, and that a user can go into and manipulate that. You can put new entries in, you can move stuff around, you can move stuff from, column A to column B, or, create different things, and see what that looks like, understand, okay, so when I did this way, this happened, and those kinds of things. You sign out of it, and the work that you did goes away. None of that's preserved. And then the next user that comes in pulls up and they've got the same dummy data. They start all over again and they can play around with it and do whatever they want. But the data that's inputted is not your real data. It doesn't get retained anywhere. It's not like you can say, okay, so today I'm going to start on creating this new batch because I just had a production run and I'm making gummies today. So I'm going to start this today, but I didn't finish it today, so I'm just going to leave it off and come back tomorrow into the sandbox and finish it. That kind of functionality wouldn't be something a sandbox could do. Is that okay? Because apparently the data folks tell me that there's a vast difference between sandbox sort of levels and functionality of a sandbox itself. So just want to make sure that what we're going to start to pursue is what you all are hoping to have. So I know, Elliot, you've been a champion of sandboxes. So what say you?
No, I totally agree. Like I'm more than happy to have somebody go in, play around. When they leave, everything gets wiped. Because the goal of that for me would be to have staff members go in there and I want you to get this, because I will know what the data is in there, this to this point, and then just, let me know when you're done. And I'm going to come review it and see what you did right, what you did wrong, check the history of the package, check the process that you took to get through it. So that idea of what that sandbox is no different than what a lot of other sandboxes that we get from third-party vendors are. So when you sign on with a new software, LeafLogix, for example, they'll give you a sandbox, you play around in it, you learn what the software is, you input your data, and then you can go live. Whereas that's sort of the same idea here in Metrc, where you take an employee and you say, actually click the button, actually push the items through, actually do this as though it's in the real world scenario. And when you're done, I'll come in, I'll review what you did, make sure you've done it correctly and awesome gold star. Or B, now we need to fix it. How do we fix it? We kick it back out and you re-go through it and pull the process up. And that's where real learning takes place. Taking place in the arena of actually clicking the button with no oversight, making the product, messing it up, fixing your error and moving on. And I totally love the idea of the data getting wiped at the end of it. Bring them back in and try again, a new process, a new item, a new movement. So I am 100% for that path. That is exactly what I believed the sandbox would be based on what other sandboxes are in this sphere that we're talking about. So 100%.
Great. My screen just flashed at me. Rebecca, you had your hand up, but now I don't see you there. Maybe Rebecca had to
I just wanted to say that I agree with Elliot, but if there was also a way to have main specific red flags that pop up, that would also be nice. So like when you create a harvest batch and you accidentally don't include the actual production batch name, or example, accidentally creating a cartridge as concentrate each instead of a vape product. A couple of red flags set up in that sandbox would be nice, but I agree to have a sandbox wipe out completely at the end of the day. That's totally fine and usable.
Okay, thank you. And Ben?
Yeah, I'm also just going to pipe in and agree. I think in my survey, I said that I don't really care about a sandbox because I've like made all the mistakes and I'm past sandboxing. But then I just thought like, oh, one day I'll have an employee that needs to touch Metrc. And I was like, wow, really need this, so that they can go through all the basic stuff and watch, have me look at it before it's a real thing that I have, like an actual problem. So totally 100%. Doesn't have to be, really at every level. I don't have to see a testing lab receive my sample. I can see there's some things in a sandbox that are just way too cumbersome to actually include, but just the basics of running a cultivation. Yeah, I agree.
Perfect. And anybody else? Genevieve.
I think the sandbox will help all around with errors too, because it'll build confidence with employees before they get in the live environment. And if you're confident in what you're doing, you'll make less mistakes.
That's a great point. Another good reason to have it. Thanks. Okay, so I think one of our big takeaways, coming out of this is clearly around sandbox and the training / functionality pieces. Are there other priorities for future conversations with Metrc that are important to you all that you want us to be considering as we move forward? And that's fine if nothing jumps right out right now. Something that we want to deliver, OCP wants to deliver as a result of this work group, is opening up a regular communication with the industry around Metrc concerns, right? Or Metrc issues, Metrc features, functionality, things like that. We know that we need to continue this type of a dialogue. We've been making, we internally at OCP, we said 2022 was going to be the year of stakeholder engagement. So we did a lot around stakeholder engagement, a lot of work in the field around that. Been getting out there, meeting folks, industry folks, municipal folks, public health folks, everybody. But one of the things that we said, probably a first quarter of 2022 was, this is great, and it can't be just 2022 is the year of stakeholder engagement. That needs to be something that we do as a course of regular business moving on. So we've been talking internally about, recognizing the idea that we didn't solve all these problems that we identified, right? But we also, I didn't feel like we would solve all the problems, that we would identify a bunch of them and that we would be able to solve for some of them. But there would be some that would be longer term projects. So how do we continue that work, and how do we continue to have this kind of a dialogue, recognizing that everybody's got time constraints. You all made a big commitment to serve on this committee, and we want to recognize that piece, and we also want to make sure that we're not leaving new participants out. That's the other risk that you run, is that if we were to say, let's keep this group going and we'll meet every 6 months, 3 years from now, this group isn't going to represent the industry, right? Right now, I feel like it does a great job of representing the industry, but that's going to change. So, how do we keep a dialogue going around the Metrc issues and future Metrc issues, right? The thing that came to mind for us internally was around something along the lines of like a quarterly Zoom meeting open to all adult use Metrc users, to come in and have this dialogue with us. Thinking that, quarterly is an opportunity. You don't have to come to every meeting. You could come if you wanted to, you could send a representative. But if you had questions, comments, concerns, there'd be something scheduled for us to do and offer that opportunity. Because I know that we can sit here all day long and say we have an open door policy and we welcome your feedback. True, 100% true. But we also know that when you just sit back and wait for people to tell you stuff, you might sit back a long time. But if you have something scheduled where you know we're going to check in, that check-in will happen. So, I mean, I think, you know, I'm seeing some green checks to this. I think people might be picking up what I'm putting down. But I also want to make sure that we're offering you all what you need and want to see. So if there's something beyond that, or if I'm saying something stupid, chime in right now and say, hey, have you thought about this as a way to keep us connected? Elliot?
I think we can see with the green check marks that like this is a good plan. I think we should try that. Let's just try a quarterly one. Maybe after a year, we realize people aren't coming to it and we need to pivot and try something different. But from what we garnered from this group right there, I think a quarterly visit to check up on things, I think that's awesome. So I really like that idea.
All right, well, that's great. We'll make that a priority. We'll make sure that we schedule a quarterly follow-up on Zoom, and we'll make it open to everybody, every industry participant in the AU side. And my dream would be to schedule a meeting like that and have nobody show up, because that means that everybody's so happy with Metrc that they don't have any concerns they want voiced. It's an ideal state, and I would love to get there. I'm not going to hold my breath on that, but would like to see it. So, anybody else have a question? Okay, I guess we're good there then. So I guess, you know, at this point in the agenda, that covers the discussion and priorities piece. I feel like we have plenty to work with to start drafting the report back to the legislature that we're going to make. Our plan, just so everybody knows, is to make sure that we again, the report is a collective issue, is a collective thing, right? So it's not OCP's reporting back on what the committee said, it's the committee reporting back on what was done by us, the work that we did and what we learned, and you know, what we're able to accomplish and what we identified as future goals and things like that. So so our plan is to, you know, draft a report that we're going to share with the work group. Our internal goal is to have that back to you all by the 28th of November. Give folks about a week. So like by December 5th, we'd take comments back on the draft. And then we'd have a final for internal review here with the commissioner's office over there to her by the 12th of December. And that would put us in a great position to be able to report back on first of the year, sometime January, to the legislature in whatever format they want to see it. You know, a written report, if they want us to present or have questions for us, however that rolls, we'll be able to jump on that. That's what we think of as the timeline to get this work done. And so we will share it out with you. You know, obviously, any kind of work product that we're sharing out in draft form, we'd ask you to keep it, you know, not to distribute it widely, because it is only a draft report. And certainly the final report will be made available publicly, and everybody can see that. So, you know, feel free to certainly socialize the report with other people that were on the committee, because it's the committee's report, right? So feel free to reach out to other folks of your staff that might have been attending with you, and make sure that we're capturing it all correctly. You know, we really appreciate your participation, your willingness to share your experiences, your concerns with this group. I've said it a couple times today, but I think it's worth saying again that you know, we really appreciate the time commitment and the sincere work that you all put into it, and the feedback that you gave us, because you know, we're as good as the group itself, and you all did not disappoint at all. I will say, just from a personal perspective, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't accomplish get more deliverables that we could check off and say, hey, you know what, look at all we got done, boom, 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 boom. I was, when I was sitting down thinking about the final report and what we're going to be able to say we accomplished, I had hoped that, we would have some more deliverables in that, check column. I know how important the transfer manifest API piece is to industry, and I wish we had better news around that. Although I am encouraged by the template piece, and I think that that is a possible solution, not partial solution, I should say, not a possible, but a partial solution for some folks. But I like everybody, I would like to have seen us make better progress, but I can't say that it has anything to do with the work that the group put into it. And on the OCP side of the thing, Eric was the face of the first couple of meetings. I've slid over for the last couple of these meetings, but the real work around this committee stuff has been done by, Lisa Roberts, Tracy Jakes, John Gagnon. Those are the folks that have been up to their eyeballs behind the scenes, doing the work, crunching numbers, getting questionnaires out, surveys out, pulling that stuff together, doing the research so we could talk about issues the next time. And OCP couldn't have done it without them. So I want to give them a little pat on the back too for all of their work on this. They've been the unseen heroes, at least on the OCP side. And we've got a new communications and stakeholder engagement person working with us. Lexi Susi's been here all of about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. I lost track already. And she has jumped right in as well. So this has been a great process for all of us. And I'm encouraged that we have what I think is going to be a sustainable model to keep the interaction going. So, for us, for next steps, we have that piece of it to establish that quarterly check-in. And then we've got the actual report to draft and get back to everybody. So those are the deliverables from OCP. And for you all, I would just ask you to reach back through, update the survey piece so we can make sure that the survey results that we're able to implement those into the findings and into the report, and that they're accurate. So that's all I have. We're coming up almost on 4 o'clock, which was the scheduled end time. The risk you run whenever you start to thank people is you leave somebody out. And I should thank Metrc too. Metrc has been a good partner with us, and they've been listening, they've been paying attention, they've been more than willing to address the group and answer questions, and I'm encouraged by that. I'm really encouraged by that. So a thank you out to Metrc folks for all of their help and willingness to work on issues and to listen, frankly. So does anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns before we adjourn this last meeting? I think we'll be doing the rest of our work through emails and sharing documents. But if nobody else has anything, I'll just thank everybody one more time. Ben?
I was listening to the last meeting and you had invited folks from the group to help participate in what you're going to bring to the legislature. Can you describe what that ask is?
Yeah, sure. So we're going to, we have a charge to report back the work of the committee to the legislature. We're going to produce a written report that we'll give them. And my understanding is that the committee will get the report, and the committee will then decide what to do with the report. And if they have questions or if they would like us to present the report findings to them, then they will essentially summon us. So I was asking folks if there were, besides OCP, OCP assumes sort of an administrative burden of doing that. that kind of work, which is fine. That's, we're the regulatory agency. We're the ones that work for the state. But I wanted to make sure that as representatives of the group, that if there are other folks that want to participate in that, be there to answer questions or assist in whatever kind of presentation they may ask for. If there were folks who are interested in doing that work with us, I'm happy to do it. I think, presenting the findings, standing shoulder to shoulder is a better look than OCP standing there and saying, this is what the industry told us. And frankly, I think that the legislature is equally, if not more interested in hearing what industry folks have to say on this issue than what the regulator has to say. So, I want to make sure that we're meeting the expectations of the legislature. So that's what I was asking for around that. If there are folks that are interested in participating, let me know, and I'll certainly keep you in the loop as the time comes to be answering questions.
Yeah, I don't have a hell of a lot going on in January, thank goodness. So yeah.
As an outdoor cultivator, you've got some free time in January.
Yeah, totally. I'm available.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Ben. We'll keep you on the short list then. All right. Well, thanks again, everybody. I really appreciate your time and all your efforts on this, and more to follow.
Thank you, Vern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.